Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Monday. It is Monday, August 29th. If you're new to the group, welcome. We are studentloanjustice.org. We are the oldest, largest, and in many ways, only true grassroots group fighting only and absolutely for student loan justice. Let me change my hat. Ooh, that's a dirty hat. Let me get a cleaner one. Hope everybody is doing well out there in the world. Hope everybody had a good weekend. That song I very badly tried to play was Fool on the Hill by the Beatles. How appropriate that song title is, albeit poorly played. Don't try and learn a song literally like 8 minutes before you come on. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to get right into it. Tonight's topic is how foolish are the Republicans? Now, if you've been on our group, and by the way, if you have any questions or comments, throw them out, and I'm very glad to read them on air if I can see them on Twitter or Facebook. Folks, we're a fiercely nonpartisan group, and I mean fiercely nonpartisan. We can't stand either political party very much at all. Pretty much we hate both parties. That's kind of the way it's been. It's been kind of a good cop, bad cop thing, like the Republicans wag their finger at us and the Democrats wring their hands and say, oh, I wish we could help. And between the two of them, nothing good ever happens. But I have to say, this blowback that I'm seeing from the Republicans, from the right-wing media, we're talking Newsmax, Fox News, which we were on last Saturday, by the way, even sort of a hit piece, going into the Lion's Den. Real America Voice, you name the conservative network, and I will show you a network that has been overrun by swamp creatures who are trying desperately to convince the American public that canceling student loans will wreck the economy, will cause inflation, will cause taxes to go up. Will have to be paid for. Ladies and gentlemen, all of those things I just said are patently, provably false. And I will get into that very soon. Let me back up a minute, a couple of announcements. As I said, we're on Fox News Wednesday. If you have been living in a cave, you wouldn't know that President Biden announced a student loan cancellation plan last Wednesday. Plan is to cancel up to $10,000 across the board, including and up to $20,000 for people who got the Pell Grant. We are not thrilled at all with this proposal. Not because it doesn't sound good; it sounds great. You know, at least to half the borrowers out there, 23 million people, it sounds fantastic. But ladies and gentlemen, we've been doing this for many years, and let me tell you. The student loan swamp is exceptionally good at foisting fake loan cancellation gimmicks on the American people as a cheap substitute for returning the bankruptcy rights that should have never been taken away. This happened in 2007. It happened in 2011. And here it looks completely like the bad guys are trying to play that very same trick on us again. This 11th hour election year promise that we heard from Joe Biden is not trustworthy, ladies and gentlemen. It just is not. Up to could mean anything. And, you know, they made this grand sweeping announcement, but they didn't publish any details at all. There will be an application process. And that right there gives me great pause. There will be means testing. This is only going to happen for people who earn less than $125,000 a year. Those two things right there give the Department of Education every tool it needs to bureaucratize this cancellation to death, so that just like every other loan cancellation gimmick they've ever done, including public service loan forgiveness and IBR, ICR, pay as you earn, revise pay as you earn, etc., almost nobody will get almost anything. Let me say that again. Almost nobody will get almost anything. And many people maybe even most people will get nothing. This is how the Department of Education rolls. They have no desires. They have no intentions of actually canceling any loans, guys. So we don't have great things to say about Biden or the Democrats at this point. We would if they passed S-2598, which is a bill in the Senate that returns bankruptcy rights to federal student loans that are more than 10 years old. And it also claws some, not much, but at least some token amount of money from the colleges, at least the poorly performing colleges. So, we'll be all gung-ho for the Democrats if they were to pass that bill. But this cancellation sort of gimmick is not worthy of us, throwing in our chips with the Democrat. We won't do that. We won't do that. But ladies and gentlemen, I have to get back to the point, the topic of tonight. And by the way, as I said, if you have any questions or comments, throw them out. I am very happy to respond to them. So, first of all, let me just say, there are 42, by my best estimate, well, even more. There are around 56 or 57 million student loan borrowers in the country completely. So that includes private loans, that includes co-signers. So we're adding like 12, 13, 14 million people on to account for private loan holders, private loan co-signers. 57 million people with student loans in the country. According to the Department of Education Chief Operating Officer, Wayne Johnson, a Republican, by the way, under Donald Trump, 85%, certainly of all federal student loan borrowers, were never going to be able to repay their loans even before the pandemic. So in federal loans alone, we're talking about 38 million distressed student loan borrowers. They were never going to be able to pay. More than half of them weren't paying anything at all, period, like 58.9%. But another, 30% or so were paying, but their loan balances were going up, not down. So they were underwater on their loans. 38 million federal student loan borrowers alone. You add in the private loans, 42 million people in this country are losing sleep over their student loans. And a little bit more, like 51 or 2% of those people are either Republican or independent. So they are not Democrats. They're either Republican or independent. I might add, the worst states by far in the union on federal student loans, certainly, if you look at the average student loan debt versus the average wages in that state, the worst states is the entire South: Mississippi, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, Arkansas, Florida, Louisiana. Did I say Oklahoma? It's the whole entire South. Look at a map of the South, and it's literally the whole entire South. Throw Texas in there as well. So the Republicans are doing two things. Okay, first of all, their argument is completely false. The thing about causing inflation, the thing about costing the taxpayers, this is garbage paper. The vast majority of the federal student loan portfolio is penalties, interest, fees. It's stuff over and above original principal. We, the borrowers, we have paid back almost all of the original amount lent. The federal government has gotten back damn near every dime it has lent out. That $1.6 trillion is almost completely, like 90%, penalty, interest, penalties, fees, etc. So canceling these loans requires not one dime, not one thin dime from the Treasury. No check is going to have to be written. No money will even change hands. It will add not one nickel to the national debt. It will not. It just will not. The loans will be canceled and nothing will be added to the national debt. That's, as I said, this is monopoly money sitting on the ledgers of the Department of Education. And maybe most importantly these days, given all the nonsense in the media from the right, I have to say, not $1 will be injected into the economy to cause inflation. It's just not going to happen. Nobody's been paying on their loans for 2.5 years. If they canceled all of the loans entirely, like wiped out the whole 1.6 trillion, even still, not $1 would be injected into the economy to cause inflation. There is literally no way that canceling, certainly not $10,000, nonsense, is going to cause inflation. And even if they canceled every nickel of federally owned student loan debt, not one penny would be injected into the economy to cause inflation. So their argument is stupid. But what's even stupider and just idiotic as a practical political matter, the Republicans are jabbing their thumb in the eye of their own base. 20%, 1 out of 5 of Fox News viewers have student loans. 1 out of 5 of Newsmax's Real American Voice, 1 out of 5 of those people have student loans or are co-signed on them. So what are the Republicans thinking? I looked at congressional polling recently, and 6 months ago, it was like the Republicans were far more popular than the Democrats as a party in terms of congressional approval polling. And then all of a sudden, like a couple of weeks ago, when it became apparent that Biden was going to cancel student loans, that started to narrow. And as of like yesterday or even today, it's now a dead heat between Democrats and Republicans. And I have to believe that student loans played a very big part in that. So let's take a step back, ladies and gentlemen. Let me just summarize this for you. The Republicans are fighting against their own base, against 42 million distressed student loan borrowers, more than half of whom are Republican or independent. They are fighting against them. They are fighting for. They are defending the worst big government, unconstitutionally, catastrophically failed, did I say big government? Let me say big government again. College enriching, red state wrecking, veteran wrecking, probably even like small business owner wrecking. Small business owners have student loans, by the way. What are they thinking? What is their political calculation? I don't know. It's astounding. What is going on with the Republicans? It's just fucking idiotic. Pardon my French. I don't get it. The Republicans are supposed to be the party of smaller, limited government, right? There's a guy, Grover Norquist. He's a famous conservative, made all the Republicans in Congress sign a tax pledge saying I would never vote to raise taxes. Grover Norquist, he's libertarian, free market, conservative. He's a darling of the conservative movement. Well, Grover Norquist, not only did this asshole take out a huge PPP loan for his little nonprofit in Washington, D.C., which did not need the money, I suspect strongly. Grover Norquist is fighting tooth and nail to get these loans turned back on and to prevent the president from canceling loans. Grover Norquist is the biggest, most disgusting hypocrite on the face of the earth. But, I single out Grover. The list is long. The guy that we went up against on Fox News over the weekend, Mark Goldwine, this like 30-something executive director or something of the committee for a responsible federal budget, they're towing the exact same line. And by the way, here's a really interesting subpoint here. There are a couple of other Democrats that are saying the exact same things that these disgusting swamp creature Republicans are saying. And those would be people like Larry Summers and an economist called Jason Furman, who was a chief of Obama's White House Council of Economic Advisors at one point. What does that tell you? You know what that tells me, ladies and gentlemen? That tells me that we are up against the uniparty. But I have to give credit where credit is due, because if you look at members of Congress who are Democrats, you don't see them saying those things very often at all. I've heard like one guy, Tim Ryan, was saying a few things, but few and far between. You look at members of Congress on the Republican side, and they are just so happy to grab those talking points from the student loan swamp and dutifully, and I would say even enthusiastically and passionately repeat them. We're talking about Democrats in Congress. We're even talking about Democrats outside of Washington, D.C., people like Governor Ron DeSantis of the state of Florida, by the way. State budget of Florida is $80 billion. The people of Florida owe $120 billion in mostly federal student loan debt. Florida's being ruined by these loans. What the fuck? Well, pardon my French, but I just have to ask rhetorically, what the F are the Republicans thinking? And if you have any questions, as I said, if you have any comments of your own, by all means, weigh in. I'm very happy to hear your thoughts there. I know we probably have quite a few. And by the way, guys, while I'm dialing in your comments here,
federal student loan.
Let me just say, do our daily actions. The loan cancellation thing is done. Biden has done what he's going to do from here to the end of this year, but really from here to the beginning of October when early voting begins. We've got one shot, exactly one shot to get S-2598 passed. S-2598 returns bankruptcy protections to student loans. And it also claws back a little bit of money from the colleges. Go to our website. Hopefully you can see the link there. Go to our website if you want to help. Your student loans are hanging in the balance here like never before. The loan cancellation thing is done. We've seen what Biden was going to do on that. It's now all down to getting our bankruptcy rights back, getting S-2598 passed. Do our daily action. These are your loans. This is your problem. We need you, and the country needs you. So, hey, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, I'm getting to the comments now. Susan Goddard says, sorry, but that hurts my ears. I think you're talking about my piano playing. I apologize, Susan. I tried, I try and make a song fit the theme of the. So Christina Winton says, we won't give up fighting until the student loan borrower is free and our rights restored. I got lucky today to get time on a work break to listen to the broadcast. Oh, good, Christina. I'm glad to hear that. And where are we going to go, ladies and gentlemen? There are no statutes of limitations for these loans. They can hound us to the grave. There's no bankruptcy protections. This loan cancellation thing, after the election, I'm sure many shoes will drop. And all of a sudden it'll be like, oh, no, here's a detail. Oh, here's another detail. Like, who knows? You can't be in default to get it, or you have to have had filed your taxes for the past 3 years. And, we need a notarized thing from your employer, whatever else they want to throw into it to make it almost impossible for most people to make it through the application process. That's what's going to happen. Something like that. It's what they've always done. It's what they're doing right now with public service. 10%. They're like bragging. Oh, they're like, ooh, 10% approval rate on public service, 99 or 90% rejection rate. That's like a super good thing by Department of Education standards. So, ladies and gentlemen, don't believe the nonsense. We've still got a battle to fight. Whether you owe $10,000 in student loans or whether you owe $310,000 in student loans. We have people who owe over $1 million in student loans. But I'd say 95% of the people on our group are super not impressed by this thing from Biden. So we've still got our fight ahead, guys. I hope that you won't let yourself be distracted, discouraged, cowed, or intimidated by what our opposition is throwing into the zeitgeist. Frankly, I think it's going to backfire on them, guys. I really think, thou doth protest too much. The American people aren't stupid. As I said, 20% of Fox News' audience, of Newsmax's audience, they have student loans, and 85% of those people were screwed, just like us. So they can try and play this little info war, but truth is a very stubborn thing, guys. We've always had the truth on our side. The truth is, this lending system is toast. The pandemic is the nail in the coffin. But let me get on to the comments here. Christina Winton, the plane was a nice try on this one. I know. I tried. They don't pay me to be musical. They don't pay me at all, as a matter of fact. Speaking of which, if you could donate right now, it would be super helpful, guys. We need to raise around $500 this week for stuff. If you could help there, let me just dial that in for you. I'm so bad at asking for money, guys. I hate doing it. Please don't make me beg. Hey, Kara Rodriguez, good question. What is the status on S2598? Kara, you've asked this before, and I appreciate it both times. The last time I talked to the Senate, which was fairly recently, they said, we're going to wait and see what Biden does, and then we're going to push the bill. So Biden did what Biden was going to do on Wednesday, and that shoe has dropped. So now we are waiting with bated breath for Dick Durbin, John Cornyn, Josh Hawley, and I mentioned a Democrat and 2 Republicans in those 3 names, by the way, which is very good, bodes very well for this bill. We are right now expecting them to be moving forward on this bill. Now, I believe the Senate is on recess for the rest of August, which is the next, 2 days. So I can't make any firm predictions, but I would expect that we'll see some kind of movement, hopefully, maybe not public, maybe public. I don't know. We'll see some kind of, hopefully I will hear about some kind of movement by Friday. That's my hope. But I will say, guys, this stuff does not happen in a vacuum. These people in Washington, D.C. are very acutely aware of public opinion and stuff. So, which again, I have to ask again, what are the Republicans thinking? How could they be so idiotic? So stupid, so stupid. But at least in my experience, people on the Hill, staffers, politicians, etc., they're usually pretty in tune to public opinion. And we have seen Republicans, a ton of Republicans, like even MAGA Republicans, like Matt Gaetz, Mike Cernovich, a letter today in the Wall Street Journal. All of them from Republicans are calling for the return of bankruptcy protections to student loans. So that all bodes really well, guys. But again, this does not happen in a vacuum. What we do on this group matters. If you're new to this group, I know we don't seem like a big deal, but I don't think student loan cancellation by executive order would have even started to be a thing. But for this group, I kid you not, we were interviewed for the very first article ever written on the question of can the president cancel student loans by executive order? We started the petition in March 2020 before anybody was talking about canceling student loans by executive order, that grew to over 1 million signatures. And it was only when we were completely blowing up in the media, Newsweek, Fox News, many other things, that Elizabeth Warren and Chuck Schumer grabbed the ball and started running with it and called on then President Trump to cancel student loans by executive order. That all started here. We absolutely would not have a bankruptcy bill and bankruptcy is way more important than loan cancellation, guys. The most important policy point I have for any of you tonight, we will not see a meaningful student loan cancellation from Joe Biden unless and until we get the threat, the leverage of bankruptcy returned to us. I don't care what any of the other groups say. I don't care what anybody in the media, I don't care what anybody else says. What I just said is the most important and very true thing you need to know if you care at all about getting your own student loans figured out. It all comes down to bankruptcy, guys. Nobody wants to file for bankruptcy. Very few people, maybe even no one, will actually have to file. But it's getting the threat of bankruptcy returned that is so important. We've seen what Biden's going to do. Probably doesn't help you if you're like 95% of the people in our group. However, when we get the threat of bankruptcy back, everything changes. It's a brand new ball game. You know, Joe Biden doesn't want to be the president that presides over the largest wave of bankruptcy filings in American history. That's the whole point. The whole point of bankruptcy is not that people run out and file. No, bankruptcy in this country is astonishingly low, like fewer than 1 million people file for any reason in this country. And that's because the lenders know that bankruptcy is out there in, as a potential remedy for the borrowers. And so they sit down and they negotiate a fair and reasonable settlement. Now, in the case of federal student loans, I think the lending system is so far gone at this point. In other words, the numbers are just too ridiculously over the cliff. I think it makes the most sense to simply cancel all federally owned loans, certainly, return bankruptcy to all federally guaranteed loans, which is the older style FFLP loans, return bankruptcy to all private loans. And that's really what needs to happen. The lending system is finished, guys. It needs to be ended. It needs to be replaced. It's the worst U.S. policy failure that I can think of, certainly domestically, economic policy in U.S. history. And I don't think that's an exaggeration. So that's the status, Kara. Sorry to give you such a long answer there. This stuff does not happen in a vacuum, though, guys. We all have to be calling both of our senators, I would say even on a daily basis between now and October 1st. And you tell them, whatever argument you want to make, whatever passion you can put into it, you do whatever it takes to get both of your senators to ideally co-sponsor, but at a minimum, publicly support S-2598. It's so freaking important. You have no idea. So there are our daily actions, just to remind you. This group is important, guys. We are the thought leaders on this. We are the tip of the spear. In fact, we are the spear in many ways. You know, some of these other student loan groups that we've seen sort of hog all the media, they're fake. I mean, fake. I mean, literally, like, we've found ties between them and lobbying groups who in the past have, the word is astroturf. So there's a thing in Washington, D.C. It's just started over the past 15 or so years where banks, insurance companies, oil companies, tobacco companies, corporations, probably investment hedge funds and so forth. They pay these marketing firms in Washington, D.C. to create fake grassroots groups to sway public opinion. Well, we found very close ties between one of the nastiest of these groups. It's called the DCI group. Google it. We found very close ties. We found that the administrators at one of the student activist groups called Student Debt Crisis, be warned. We found that one of their admins had come from the war room of the DCI group. And this is like 10 years ago. And we called them out on it, and they went dark for a while, and then they resurfaced again under a new name, which now is Student Debt Crisis. But these guys have been against bankruptcy, both publicly and behind the scenes, for many years. Go onto their group and see if I'm wrong. Start talking about bankruptcy and see how they really throw cold water on the concept. Oh, bankruptcy is a terrible thing to have to do. People shouldn't have to file for bankruptcy. It's just, that's terrible. No, we don't want bankruptcy. Don't believe any of that bullshit, guys. Bankruptcy is enshrined in the Constitution. It's very fucking important. Pardon my French. Founding fathers knew that bankruptcy was so important. They called for it in the Constitution, not the Bill of Rights, the body of the Constitution itself. And they called for a head of the power to declare war and raise an army. Our opposition would love nothing more than to see a fake loan cancellation gimmick in the continued absence of bankruptcy. And lo and behold, when Joe Biden made his announcement on Wednesday, this student debt crisis group, there was kissing and crying and hugs and tears and champagne or whatever. Disgusting. So you can't believe everything you think you see on the internet. So be warned, guys. This has nothing to do with them. This has everything to do with us, the borrowers. This has everything to do with you and your loans. And if you're not fighting this battle, if you're doing what our opposition wants, and that is sitting back, doing nothing, waiting, watching, and worrying, and reading Forbes magazine and hanging out on the student debt crisis group, so disappointed in Elizabeth Warren, by the way. Somehow they have ingratiated themselves with Elizabeth Warren. That's just a disgusting thing in and of itself. But if you allow yourself to be, to drink the Kool-Aid and be lulled into a false sense of complacency by these fake groups like Student Debt Crisis, Natalia Abrams, used to be Robert Applebaum. But anyways, that's another story. Well, then at the end of the day, you have nobody else to blame but yourself when we get screwed. And ladies and gentlemen, let me say it one more time. Everything we've seen Biden do and everything that we've seen going on right now completely confirms our suspicion and our fear that we are being tricked yet again by a fake loan cancellation gimmick and the continued absence of bankruptcy protections from these loans. So let's not go down that path this time, shall we? We need your help. Tell everyone you know with student loans, they need to be helping us. We've got a bill, S-2598. As I said, all that stuff I said before, we need you. Hey, Leslie Fishman says, I've actually had backlash from the most liberal Democratic friends. Yeah, you know, I think the dirty little secret, particularly in Washington, D.C., Leslie, is that the Democrats, they're part of this. They want this lending system, this lending scam to continue. I mean, follow the money. Who does this thing benefit? It benefits the colleges. And I think most people would agree that most colleges tend to be kind of like this on the Democratic side. They tend to be, not always. So, and, you know, we're seeing a bunch of strong DNC booster supporter people. And they're like, no, just take this Biden thing and be happy. No, vote for Democrats, vote for Democrats, vote for Democrats. They're like, oh, you don't want those evil Republicans to win, do you? Because, you know, they're going to ruin you. And look, $10,000 from Joe Biden, vote for Democrats. Well, we're not doing that, guys. If S-2598 is passed, hopefully before early voting begins in October, then yeah, we will give credit where it is due. And if it is due to, if it's a party line vote, and the Republicans are all against it, then yeah, we will say what is obvious. And that is the Democrats solved this problem. And only a fool would vote with student loans would ever vote Republican ever again. These people are evil. That's what we will say. And I would love to say that. But we're not there, guys. Right now, the Democrats have us set up for a trick. And this idiocy by the Republicans, I hope they come around. I hope and think they will. I think the truth is a strong thing. Quite frankly, I think S-2598, when it's finally voted on, I think it will pass with a very strong majority in the Senate. I think it'll pass 70 to 30, maybe 80 to 20, because all opposition to bankruptcy, and this is the most important thing to me, all opposition to bankruptcy has gone away over the past, certainly since COVID began. We almost never hear anyone opposing the return of bankruptcy protection to student loans, at least not publicly. Behind the scenes, I think there's a lot of people who are very worried about bankruptcy coming back to student loans. Swamp people, our opposition, and that includes Democrats. As I said, people like Larry Summers, Jason Furman, they're not good people. They are part of the swamp. So Susan Goddard says, unfortunately, it's a complicated subject and most people aren't versed in the subtleties. Yeah, you're so right, Susan. I know a ton about student loans. I know Susan and Leslie do. You know, we're a little more sophisticated than average people. I can only hope that the 20% of all adults in this country who have felt this despicable, nationally threatening lending scam from the pointy end will start getting up at the family reunions, at the barbecues, at the get-togethers, and talking down their drunk uncles and saying, hey, you listen to me. You don't know what you're talking about these student loans. These things are poison. They've ruined my life, or they're about to ruin my life, and I've seen them ruin many other lives. And why don't you shut the fuck up? Pardon my French. Sorry if I'm really dropping the F-bombs tonight, but I feel strongly about it. You know, we have people in our group. We have people who borrowed like a couple, like $20,000, have repaid over $100,000, still owe over $100,000 on their debt. We have many people like that. In fact, there are millions of people across the country who have repaid many multiples of what they borrowed and still owe many multiples of what they borrowed. Think about that. Susan Goddard says, at this point, I'm not paying. It's immoral and it's unjust, and the most corrupt system I have ever had the misfortune to get involved with. Susan, I think you just spoke for almost all of us. I can't think of a more corrupt, predatory system. I can't. And I've been ripped off quite a few times, growing up. You get a parking ticket and you don't pay it, and $35, all of a sudden it's like $270. And, I lived in California, where the state government is just notoriously vicious and predatory for stuff like parking tickets. I mentioned parking tickets. I got a lot of parking tickets in college, by the way. But I've been ripped. I've been nickel and dime. We all have been at one point or another. We've seen the scams. Corruption. A box falls off the truck. I think most people kind of, all right, well, that's going to happen. But this student loan thing, this isn't a little $35 parking ticket going up to $270. This isn't a box falling off of the truck. This is the whole fucking convoy disappearing in the desert. Like, that's the scale of this student loan scam. And people who have seen it firsthand know exactly what I'm talking about. People who maybe have never had student loans, or maybe somehow paid off their loans in years or decades past, they don't have a clue. And quite frankly, those people should keep their mouths shut until they learn about it. They won't, I know. But this all starts with you fighting this fight. Ideally, I would hope you would go to our website and do our daily actions. That's a collective action that if everybody on our group did that, in fact, if even 10% of the people on our group, which is over 1 million people strong now, if even 10% of the people did our daily actions, that would be 100,000 people blowing up the Twitter accounts of our very well-chosen targets every day. It would be 100,000 people shutting down the phone lines of every member of Congress who we target every day. Think about how strong that would be. That would be problem solved. And it all starts with you. It all starts with you sitting there, to Kimberly and Britt and Susan and Christina, everybody else I see here. Hey, Terry died, man. Good to see you, Terry. Terry has been a stalwart gentleman on this fight, let me just say, and I appreciate your great efforts, sir. Terry says, good evening, everybody. And once again, my hat goes to Alan for standing his ground, as always, on Fox News over the weekend. Thank you, Terry. I appreciate it. We should and could be doing those Fox News interviews every single day. We would love to. And everybody out there, how hard is it for you to pick up the phone, or maybe more realistically, send an email to a newspaper, maybe a local newspaper, a local radio station, a local television station, and tell them to do a story on the predatory student loan problem, and tell them to get a hold of us. We've been sharpening this sword for 18 years now. We can answer all the tough questions. We can go on Fox News and shut those clowns down. We can do that. It's what we're good at. Is what we were meant to do. But me sitting here, preaching to the choir, that doesn't get that done. Me going into the lion's den and mixing it up with those assholes, that's where we win. So I hope you will take that to heart, and I hope that you will realize that this stuff is not happening in a vacuum, guys. What we do, what you do matters. You have no idea how important you are, how important you could be. It takes only one well-done interview in, Florida to get Ron DeSantis to say, oh, I had no idea it was this bad. I better rethink this student loan thing. No, I'm going to rethink this thing. Only takes one good news article to make that happen. We can make that happen. But if I call a reporter and I go, hey, you should do a story, they're like, yeah, this guy's a creep. But if a third party, if just a normal person, or maybe somebody in their area says, hey, look, I live in Orlando. I've lived here my whole life. You need to talk to this group about student loans. The state of Florida is being wrecked, and they can tell you a lot more about it than I can. They have people in Orlando who are more than willing to be interviewed, who have exceptionally incredible and compelling stories about how sinister the student loan problem is. If you do that, it will happen. It's not that hard. Like in the past week, we were featured in Los Angeles, in Indiana, in Wisconsin, and all that stuff started with our members making those stories happen. So you have no idea how important you are. And as I said, we stand at the ready to go into any lion's den, answer all of the tough questions, provide reporters and producers with living, breathing, decent people who have been just hurt badly by these loans, and they're willing to be interviewed. That's what we do. That's what I'm good at. And that's what I would love to be doing all day long. That will happen when you make it happen. And much rides in the balance, guys. You know, what we get done between now and the end of the year, I think that's it. I think that's it for us. If we can't get it done by the end of the year, you know, I can't tell the future, but I think the Democrats will probably lose the midterms if we can't get this done. I think the Republicans will take over, and then we can look forward to nothing. Our window of opportunity will be gone and done. Our bill will be dead, and we're going to be back to ground zero. I don't want to go there, guys. We've gotten this far. We've come so freaking far in the past 2 years, guys. It would be just a tragedy, an American tragedy. You know, people would probably die. I don't want to put too fine a point on it, but I don't want to be too dramatic. But we have a window right now, guys. What you do for the next month, certainly for the next 3-4 months before the end of the year, I think it's gonna tell the tale. So, you have no idea how important you are. Hey, Christina Winton says, can't wait for the shirts. Oh, yeah. I don't know if people can still order those t-shirts or hats. We did a very limited edition swag thing. Let's see if I have a hat laying around. Oh, anyways, I'm not sure if you can still get a hat, but you can at least look at them at bit.ly.slj hats or bit.ly.slj shirts. And if you can order one, please do it. It will help. Extremely limited edition. They could be collector's items someday. Who knows? Kimberly Marasco says, weren't you making a film? I recall donating a little to that. It's a good point, Kim. We're making multiple films right now, actually. We're involved with several documentaries. The one I think you're thinking of is called Scared to Debt. And if you go to scaredtodebtmovie.com, you can see it. Unfortunately, I don't have any kind of a timeline for completion of the film. You have to ask Mike, the filmmaker, about that. I frankly haven't heard from Mike lately. I wish the film was out today. Hint, hint, Mike. You know, Mike could get that sucker up. He probably wouldn't make as much money, but he could get that thing up on, you know, Amazon Prime or something tomorrow. How I wish the film was out. Mike is sitting on a gem there. But like I said, it's not my film, it's Mike's film. Scaredtodebtmovie.com. You can see it for yourself. And we have some other things brewing, some other documentaries in the offing, which, knock on wood, hopefully will come out in a very timely way. So Kimberly says, definitely it's due to your group. Well, thank you, Kimberly. And if you appreciate what we're doing, guys, the best thing that you can do to show your appreciation, it's not to buy a t-shirt. It's not to donate, although we need those things a little bit. We don't need a lot to survive and win and fight and win this battle. It's doing stuff. It's doing actions. It's fighting this battle with us. You can't sit back and eat popcorn and say, hey, you go, guys, and let me know when loans are canceled. Good for you. That's not going to win it for us, guys. We've done this for 18 years. We need you getting off your ass, pardon my French. And to everybody out there who's doing the hard work, I salute you. I salute, applaud you. We are the pioneers. We know what we've done. And we know that we are the thought leaders in this. And we know that we continue to have to be here pointing in the right direction, because all the fake groups and the straight up bad guys, our opposition, they would love to get the path twisted against us so that we never get to where we need to be. Everything is against them. Everything is for us right now. Because, ladies and gentlemen, you know, as Susan said, she's not paying again. And come January 1st, when supposedly the loans are going to be turned back on, my best estimate now, in light of this Biden cancellation, my best estimate now is that only 10% or less of all federal student loan borrowers will ever resume paying on their loans again. In my humble opinion, it's not only unwise, but I think it's unpatriotic to ever pay again on your federal loans. And if you do pay on your federal loans ever again, for whatever reason, everybody's going to make their own decisions. But if you ever do pay on your student loans again, you will be in the small fraction of a percentage of the people. So you're going to be in the huge minority. You're going to be the few in my opinion, idiotic people, unpatriotic people who, and I know everybody's got their own reasoning and stuff, so I'm not gonna bash on you too hard, but you're gonna be in the tiny minority if you ever resume paying on your federal loans again. Kim Marasco says, what shirts? Go to bit.ly.slj shirts. I'm not even sure they're available anymore. I don't think they are, quite frankly. But those are the links if you want hats and shirts. So sorry about that. So a few more comments here before I have to wrap it up, guys. We're getting overloaded on time here. Thank you, Gordon. We uploaded the Fox News interview to our website. It's on the main page, studentloanjustice.org. So you can go to our website. The first thing you'll see is my big forehead way too close to the camera like this. As I said, this interview is better heard than seen. Christina Winton says, the fake gimmick won't hold up. We will all uncover their tricks and mail that proof en masse to the President, Department of Education. Mailing the proof to the President and the Department of Education and all the people in Washington, D.C., Christina, they already know that it's a con. They already know that it's a scam. They already know that it's a gimmick. So I think all of your time is probably best spent spreading the word about our group, finding everyone you know with student loans and saying, hey, if you're serious, we need to get with this group. And if you're not a joiner, like I'm kind of not a joiner, quite frankly, I get that. It's like, I don't want to join a group. As long as you're fighting tooth and nail for S2598, I don't care if you do it here with us. We'd love to have you here, obviously, or whether you do it as an army of one. But you've got to fight. You've got to fight because nobody else is going to pull your weight for you. That's probably the most important thing that we've learned over coming up on 18 years of doing this. So yeah, we will hit the president. We will hit Congress. We will hit the Department of Education. We're doing that. We're doing all that, but we got to do way more than that because they know what I know. What I know is this lending system is toast. It's finished. It's done. And they need to know that we know what they know. Did I say that right? So, okay, we've got just a ton of more comments here, guys. I'm sorry I can't get to them all, but I hope I answered most of them in a substantial, meaningful way. If you're new to the group, again, welcome. We need you fighting with us. This battle is only getting started. And these next 4 months, but really this next month of September, before early voting begins in October, that is it, guys. That's it. So be the one of the 10% that we need of people doing our daily actions. At least do that. It's the least you could do. We're here to help. We're here. If you set them up, we'll knock them down. You get 5 news stations to do a story, we will show up and we will get those 5 news stations, 5, if not 10 people to interview. We stand at the ready to assist you in your efforts, but it starts with you. It always has. Maybe one final question here I see from Michael. Need to find out how much money the politicians are making on student loans. They're making a lot, Michael. The student loan beast has its money tentacles into both sides of Congress. I could start naming names, but it's everywhere. It's very pervasive. It's a very big thing. The for-profit colleges, these nonprofits that these senators and congressmen champion, these political action committees, these campaign committees, family members like Mike Enzi, John Boehner, on and on and on. We're fighting the swamp, guys. We're fighting Washington, D.C. Easily defeated. We own this lending system. We are way stronger than the lending system. That only matters when you help and when you fight this battle with us. So with that, I'm just going to say one very last time, do the daily actions. It's the least you can do. I will maybe also add, go to studentloanjustice.medium.com. Daily actions. Oh, sorry. Daily action right here. Go to studentloanjustice.medium.com. Read the last 8 articles that we've written. You will become a very fine, fierce, and fit and knowledgeable student loan justice warrior. Those are headlines that you've almost never seen in the mainstream media. You need to know that stuff. You need to know. and they're easy to read. They're quick articles. They're like, we wrote them for a broad audience. We'll see what happens in the next month, guys. I don't know what else to say. I pray and I beg that what I'm saying gets through to you here tonight. So I will only say, I'll be back on Wednesday. Battle's heating up, guys. Be in it. Ed, our fearless co-leader, will be with you tomorrow. So let's make this week the strongest week ever for student loan justice. And let's get this done. Good luck. Godspeed. And God bless everyone.